Okay, when a lot of people call me, they vent. They're at a tough time in their life. They have been enduring continuing stress over their conviction, dealing with their lawyers, all of the fallout from their conviction. Um, and I hadn't planned to film a video today, though I wanted to do one quickly. I just accepted a phone call while I was writing or finishing up this sales letter for our reputation management course that allows defendants before they go to prison and while in prison to document their journey, grow their network, write their blog and ebook, and to have our staff oversee and supervise all of the writing. So I'm writing this reputation management sales letter, and I get this phone call from a doctor, a former doctor, who's very angry about his case. And after about 4 minutes of patiently listening, I began to ask him some questions, and initially asked how he felt about his reputation. And I read somewhere that a statement without evidence is simply an opinion. So to the extent that we could track data at Etica, at Federal Prison Advice, we do. So I make it a habit to ask the thousands of people each year that reach out to us, whether through email or phone, wherever, in an audience, how they feel about their reputation. And more than 90% of the thousands of people who reach out to us complain about the damage to their reputation because of their criminal or civil case. So I asked this former doctor about that, and he said, yes, it's been destroyed. It's the Department of Justice, it's the Securities and Exchange Commission, it's my former colleagues, it's the internet. It has totally destroyed me. And I said, okay, embrace it. What are you doing to repair it? And silence, very little, but he did default to his complaining. I have often said that speaking with defendants, I know because I was there, is like speaking to a politician or asking a politician. In fact, watch the last debate. Politicians are asked a question. They don't really answer the question. What do? They default to their talking points. So when I asked this defendant what steps he was putting in place to manage his reputation, he got quiet and then really threw it back to the government, the Department of Justice, and everyone else. And in many ways, I get it, because for a long time, I was frustrated blaming UBS, my co-conspirator, my senior partner. And it feels good to do so, though it doesn't get us closer to that end goal, whatever you'd like it to be: happiness, success, growing your network, restoring your reputation. So as I was writing this sales letter and on this phone call, when I asked how he was managing his reputation, he really fell into the number one here: complain, but take no action. So I transitioned from inquiring into his reputation that he was clearly not ready to rebuild, and said, can you share any lessons you've learned since pleading guilty as you get closer to going in? And frankly, I think that question too really upset him. And he said, lessons? What lessons can be learned from an overzealous government seeking to destroy and ruin my life? What lessons are there? That the system is unjust? That the successful people like me are purposely taken down? I'm angry. I'm past denial. I'm enraged. Lessons? Why don't you tell me some lessons that you learned? He was really angry, and I wasn't sure if maybe I didn't have the skills to settle him down, but I did want to convey to him that there are some lessons that can be learned that can take some long time. It can take some time to develop, and you can get them at various stages of the journey. If anyone has read my book or my blogs or videos, I speak openly about the impact that Michael Santos has had on me. Michael served 26 consecutive years in prison, and if you read his book, Earning Freedom, which we make a part of our Blueprint membership program, Michael would tell you that he didn't really begin learning lessons until he was locked inside of a county jail while he was looking at a 45-year prison term, and he came across a philosophy book. That was when his initial lesson began, that he can emerge successfully, that he could have dignity throughout this journey. His lesson really started at a different point after he had been convicted, or around that stage where he was looking at a very lengthy sentence. If you were to ask him, perhaps he wishes he had started sooner. I'm sure he did, by accepting responsibility for the bad decisions he made. He certainly wouldn't have served 26 years in prison. The point is, he began learning lessons at a very important stage of his journey. All of us have to learn lessons, and unfortunately, this doctor who reached out to me this morning was failing to see any upside or positives from this experience. So rather than letting him go on and on and on, I said, would you feel comfortable if I shared some of the lessons that I learned? He said, yeah, go ahead. I'd love to hear them. Now, admittedly, I'm many years ahead in this journey. I was released from prison in August of 2009. It's now 2015, and I have had a number of years to think back and assess my experience and the lessons that I've learned. But if you were to read my blog from prison or my book or follow my work, there are a handful of lessons that have impacted me. And I quickly rattled off 7 to him, and I gave a few lines on each. I said, I don't know, I came up with the number 7, but I said, let's go through 7 exercises, 7 lessons. And I said, perspective. And I said, in prison, Michael Santos gave me Viktor Frankl's book, who wrote A Man's Search for Meaning, who had endured such horror in the concentration camps. I said, I realized in prison, if a man like that could endure unfathomable pain and harm, I could probably endure a measly 18 months in prison. Perspective. Tolerance. I was a privileged, spoiled stockbroker, USC athlete who was probably intolerant of others, too quick to judge, didn't appreciate or fully understand the experiences that other people might have had in life. Frankly, experiences that weren't as positive or didn't have the opportunities that I had. So I developed a sense of tolerance in prison and really began to admire many of my fellow prisoners who had endured heartache that frankly I could never imagine and still could never imagine. Number 5, take a punch. Certainly prior to my surrender, people had counted me out. I remember a circulating email amongst so-called friends making fun of my Department of Justice press release. And I wasn't sure if some people thought I could handle it, maybe some within my own family. So as a result of working hard in prison, documenting my journey, growing my network, thinking differently, avoiding the herd mentality as I write about in our lesson plan, not thinking like the ostrich with my head buried in the sand, I learned that I could take a punch in life. And that felt good. It felt good. I think I proved some people wrong. I like that competitive edge. Thinking differently. When Michael Santos suggested I should write a blog in prison, initially I thought, what are people going to think? I'm not a skilled writer. I haven't written since USC. Do I know the best noun or verb to write? What's a split infinitive? Oh my God, I can't do this. And Michael said, if you continue to think at the same level of thought that got you here, you're going to emerge not as prepared as you should be. Why don't you begin to become more of an individual to form your own approach, and I'll help you if you work. So I began to think differently, and I'm so glad I did, because some people told me that I was insane and crazy writing a blog, then book, and speaking and teaching from my experience. But I was fortunate that Michael had been in for 22 or 23 years when we met. And he said, I'll help you leverage off my experience, but it won't be easy. You'll have to begin thinking a little differently. 3, I never wasted time in prison. A number of my bloggers or our bloggers write and tell me the highest, or they confirm what I told them when I was counseling them, that the highest value in prison tends to be boredom, especially the weekends, which can really drag on and on and on. So a lesson that I learned from prison was to always be aware if I felt bored or if I was wasting time. It led me to take action and to read or to write, to exercise, just to do something different. You'll never want to be bored on the inside. And second to last lesson, ethics. I used ethics as a buzzword or cliche prior to my surrender to prison, but while there, I wish I started earlier, while there I embraced living an ethical, principled life. Of not just saying that I was going to be a man of integrity, of developing it. Of not just talking about my values, of living faithfully to them. I'll never forget the 31st of December 2008, my first New Year's Eve in prison. Michael Santos encouraged me to go to the library and write out my values and goals and share them with my network and explain to them how they can hold me accountable. Ethically, I wanted to say something and follow through, and really ethics is the reason that I've been able to rebuild my life in such a measurable, authentic way, because I strive to be ethical. I love ethics. It's arguably my greatest passion. Hardly a day goes by without holding some ethics book or taking notes or using something that I can implement to my day-to-day experience. And number 1, the biggest lesson I learned and hear about through my work, coming home is the hardest part if you're not ready. So many defendants are obsessed, totally obsessed with the length of their sentence, and I get it, because we can't imagine serving 8 days in prison, let alone 18 months. I get it, I was there, but the reality is the doors will open. And many of you listening will serve a longer time on federal probation than you will in prison. And without preparations, without a different mindset, your new reality is going to be really, really tough. If you don't take measurable steps to rebuild, to think differently, to develop perspective, tolerance, to demonstrate that you can take a punch and not waste your time in prison, life is going to be very hard and you're going to have regrets. And to data, as I close, I presume somewhere in this sales letter I write about data, more data. Maybe not. I could just be wasting your time and you're wondering if I'm going to get there. I'm not sure if I'm going to get there. This is an impromptu video. Okay, maybe I didn't put it in here, but I should have. I can tell you that about 20% of the people that reach out to our company are home from prison. They're struggling. They all regret the way they prepared for their journey. So to close, what are your 7 lessons? If you've just been indicted or sat for your pre-sentence investigation, or you're about to go in, or you're a family member listening to this because you want to help a loved one in prison, or you're in the halfway house or on probation, what 7 lessons have you learned? Because I can guarantee you when you're with a probation officer or an employer or a lender or having coffee with a woman who wants to know, my God, why did this person go to prison? You have to be able to articulate these lessons, demonstrate what you learned from them, why your experience is different, and why you have proved worthy of a second chance. I'm not sure what will happen with this doctor. He was, I think, taken aback by our call and perhaps my perspective and positive thoughts, but he could do better. And I told him, you could do better, and he knows he could do a lot better. We can all do better. We're all works in progress. So this is my video. Any questions? 818-424-2220. You should subscribe to our YouTube channel because I have filmed a handful of videos that we'll be posting here soon. And should you have more information about our reputation management course, I'll be finishing the sales letter here soon and publishing it both at federalprisonadvice.com and etikallc.com in case you have interest in documenting the journey and changing your outcome. Have a wonderful day. Thank you all very much for your attention. Bye-bye.